Hey, Facebook world, and happy Monday. This is Positive and Productive. Um, Today we're going to be talking about something interesting. Okay, something I think is interesting. But also hopefully it helps with you too. So one of the things I keep hearing, and I'm just totally fascinated by the pandemic. Maybe it's like my sense of curiosity rather than being sad about the pandemic. I like to just get really curious about it. And I keep saying I would love to be a sociologist right now to kind of study all of these massive changes in our social structure and how they're impacting us on a daily basis. I'm not a sociologist, but one of the things that I keep hearing is what the heck is happening to time? I mean, I can speak from my experience. Before March, I felt like I never had enough time to do anything. Now I have a lot less to do per se, because I have stopped one of my part-time jobs, quite a few of my out-of-the-house hobbies. Yet, despite the fact of having less to do on a literal basis, even when I'm in a perfectly fine mood, I'm full of gratitude, I'm happy, I'm not feeling any type of latent anxiety, the days fly by and I feel like nothing's getting done. So I've been talking to friends and acquaintances about that. Lo and behold, it's pretty unanimous. Time just doesn't feel the same anymore. So I got curious and started researching about it. And that's where our strategy from today comes from. Before we talk about it, it's kind of neat, like being able to say good morning to you out there, Vinny and Lynn. I always appreciate you being here because routine and structure is a big part of the strategy we're going to talk about today. So I just adore that you're here and you show up because that creates a context for me and time. Okay, so I'll try not to get too specific into it because I'm actually not a scientist and my understanding is limited. But I've been doing research, probably even before the pandemic, on the brain and how it keeps track of time. And there's a couple different ways. There's like circadian rhythms, so that's time over cyclical periods. There's like your temporal timekeeping, there's your hippocampus, there's all of this stuff. But right now and today, what we're going to talk about is your neural clock. So if you look, I put a link in there. You can listen or read. It's from this website called Big Think, and they put out interesting little tidbits of information. I just adore what they have. But today's is about that neural clock. And what that means is from the time you were born till every day, your brain keeps track of elapsed time through experience. So it's not necessarily like a clock. It's not like counting the minutes, but what it's doing is it's logging this experience takes about this long in a feeling, the way that it feels. The best way for me to explain this for you to understand, when you pull up to a stoplight and you're there and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, it feels like this red light's taking a lot longer than usual. That's your neural clock. None of us, well, to my knowledge, most of us have not sat there with a stopwatch timing how long red lights go. But if you've been driving for years, you can more or less feel when it's taking too long or it was fast or it's just right. Okay? That exists in all of our experiences. So what does this have to do with our strategy today? When our lives shifted drastically, for the most part, that looks like staying home and not being out and about or around people as much. You, in a sense, lost your neural clock, right? Because the neural clock is experiential. It keeps time based on experiences. Red lights take this long, cooking breakfast takes this long, driving to work takes this long, and it crafts your day, the elapsed time of your entire day, by adding up all of those experiences and figuring out how long it should take. So when our days drastically changed quickly, we lost our ability to track time without a clock, really, in a sense. We do have other internal clocks, but for the most part, the experience one. So what does that mean? Well, I can tell you my personal experience. For me, I would normally have a really quick breakfast and head to work. Well, oftentimes I'd eat on the way to work. Now I have time to make coffee, have a bowl of cereal, cook some eggs. So breakfast in my neural clock before would be about a 1 minute elapsed time experience Yes, I eat like an animal very quickly. Now it's more like a 20-minute experience. So my brain hasn't really figured out that shift yet. It can't understand why this thing that usually takes a minute, so it should leave lots of time left in the day for me to plan and do other stuff. Now all of a sudden I've just kind of lost time into the ether. It's gone. So that's what's happening scientifically. It's one of the reasons you may feel like time's just running away from you. So what to do about it? Well, the thing that's going to serve us best is repetition, right? Repetitive experiences helped build our internal neural clock before. So repetition, repetitive experiences will build our internal clock now. So it's time, if you haven't already, to start your day with a very specific task that takes about the same time. So the strategy that I would like to offer today is beginning your day, particularly weekdays, beginning your day with the same activity. And it has to take approximately the same amount of time for this to really kick your neural clock in and to make you feel comfortable with the pace of the way time is moving internally. So I would love to hear from all of you ways that you start your day. Sorry, I'm typing mine. I want to make sure the activity starts and ends at the same time. Oh yeah, Jen's here. Thankful for neuroplasticity. Yes, love it. So some of the strategies I'm going to recommend is reading every single morning. And I don't recommend doing it on your phone, although I'm guilty of it. That's like a whole other thing. There's a lot of research out there about that much stimulation, because there's pictures and lights and images and text and sometimes even sound. And that's a lot of overwhelm first thing. But read a daily reader. So I have my daily reader. It's just, less than a page every day. It could be a breathing exercise, 10 breaths. Paulo Coelho gives this one strategy where he says before he gets out of bed every morning, as soon as he opens his eyes, he breathes in his nose and inhales everything wonderful and magnificent in the world. And then he exhales out of his mouth gratitude and joy. So you could start your day with 10 breaths, meditating on everything wonderful. You could get up and go for a short 5-minute walk if you have the ability. You could get up and do a specific series of stretches, if you're someone who feels achy. You could get up and it could be like a very food base. It could be every day I wake up and I start my coffee and I eat breakfast. The important part is that it's consistent. Let's see what other things we have out there. Writing in a journal. Beautiful. Side note, we're going to pause here. What book was it? Oh, Matthew Walker wrote a book about sleep. I can't remember the exact title, but it has sleep in it. He talks about the power of the mind when it first shifts out of sleep and how creative it is. He'll explain it much more eloquently, but basically in your dream state, when you're in the phase of sleep where you can dream, the boundaries of reality are removed. So that's why sometimes your dreams are just super wild, because anything goes, right? We can take away the stuff that we're self-conscious about in society, and we can take away the rules of physics and all of the fun stuff that makes the world go round, and all of a sudden it's just pure anything goes. So writing first thing in the morning is highly recommended because you've lost those boundaries to an extent and you're able to open up to more creativity. Lynn also throws out making my bed, LOL. Not LOL. Lynn, that's great. And there's tons of people who have really spoken about how important it is to have routine and structure and to do something. And accomplishing a task that early, even if it's just making your bed, sets off a tone for the day that's productive and positive. So I love those. I'm gonna wait just a moment and type some of this up and see if any more comments come through. Right? It's really important that it's a task that gets done too. Because our brain gives off dopamine when we finish a task. Like, how many of you just love checking things off of to-do lists? Like, you feel so accomplished, so much joy. You actually get a little hit of dopamine when you finish a task. So when we're talking about recreating our neural clock or really creating some consistency in the beginning of our day so that we can get a better grasp on what time feels like inside of our brains, it really should be a very predictable task. I'm going to recommend that you keep it shorter than 10 minutes. That's not to say that a 20-minute writing task is a bad thing. Like, if you've already built in that habit, it's great because it's there. But the important thing is that it happens on a daily basis at the beginning of your day at approximately the same time. I guess another way for me to illustrate this is your work week versus your weekend, right? How many of you have a vastly different wake up Monday through Friday than you do Saturday through Sunday? Right. So your brain latches onto that. And the wake up pattern is a way to know what day of the week it is. More specifically, your brain doesn't really care if it's Saturday or Sunday. What it cares about is certainty and predictability. So when I have this morning wake up, let's say Saturday is reading in bed, and you never do that during your work week. Your brain knows, okay, when I read in my bed, that signals to me that the rest of this day is not going to include work. It's going to include the things I normally do on a weekend. So it's going to put into motion those feelings and beliefs and expectations and patterns that you would normally go through. So what we're trying to do with this strategy is just create a new normal that feels good and creates safety and predictability for our human brains. Questions? I probably can't answer them anyways. I'm just sharing things that I've learned out of curiosity. I'm in no way an expert, kind of that jack of all trades concept. I'm moderately decent at a whole bunch of things, but excelling at nothing. And I like that. I'm okay with that. And I hope that the information I share with you brings you something positive and productive to focus on. And if you're interested in it, I highly recommend going to that Big Think link. If you joined in late and you missed it in the comments, as soon as I hit end broadcast, this will post and you can go back. But it talks about the neural clock. You could also just Google neural clock and figure it out. With that being said, I'm actually going to go finish my Monday routine. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm very distractible today. In the beginning, I gave a shout out to Vinny and Lynn because you're here consistently and you said good morning and you do that consistently. Monday signals my neural clock for my entire week, and I can count on you being here for the most part. So it puts me in that comfortable place and reminds me like, oh, okay, this is the Monday mode. Here's what comes next and next and next and next. So I'm just full of joy, appreciating all of you and how you've become a part of my own personal routine. And with that, I'm actually going to stop talking and move on to the next part of my Monday. I love and appreciate you all, and I will see you Wednesday for Get Rock Recovery Fit.